Happy Friday, diehards and degenerate gamblers. Welcome to the Undefeated Post-Weigh-In Show. This one's for UFC 290. We're talking big boys here. We got the big card, the big pay-per-view. It's a huge fight week. 2 titles on the line. Bo Nickal in the house. We got a lot of stuff going on. What we do on this show is we take all the information throughout the week after the Sharp Action Report, after the full podcast breakdown, after DMing with the boys. We bring it all together after watching these fighters get up on the scale, and then we use that tiny extra little bit of knowledge to make the final bets that we need to make this week, and hopefully we make some cash. We call it the Undefeated Show for a reason. Never a bad read, never a bad bet given out here on this show. Make sure you smash the like button for me, and let's get on into it. My guy in the house, Dixon Sider, already saying, imagine. My goodness. So the first thing those of you who are not following the Twitter sphere need to know, we lost a fight. Josiah Harrell's been pulled from the card. We're not going to get the Jack Della Maddalena fight. The reason for that is during his testing, they apparently found like clotting in his brain, which holy crap. Like, thank God we have yet to have like a death in the octagon in the UFC or anything like that. And this one could have been it. Like on Saturday, if they had skimped on this guy's medicals, if they had let him slide through, he was absolutely getting knocked out by Jack Della. I don't think anybody has any questions as to whether or not that's a thing that was going to happen. He was going to get knocked out. And the diagnostic testing leading up to clearing him for this fight could have legitimately saved this man's life and also saved our sport, because as big as the UFC is getting, it's not the NFL yet. And something like a fighter dying on pay-per-view is the type of thing that would take us 10 years in the wrong direction. So for all reasons considered, thank God. And if I could, I don't have time to go on like a huge rant for you guys, because otherwise I would, and it would be a fireball-filled one if I had more opportunity. But we need to like give fighters who have canceled fights a bit of a bit more leeway. You know, as soon as you see the fight posted that it's been canceled, or the tweet or anything like that, everyone's ready to jump on the board that so-and-so is ducking so-and-so. They didn't want the smoke. They didn't want the heat. And don't get me wrong, every once in a while, I do think that a fight is canceled due to a managerial decision and things like that. It does happen. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. But a lot of times, I think more often than not, it's for legitimate reasons, like these types of medical suspensions. And these fighters have their health and their lives to think about. You know, they've got families and stuff like that. We need to be okay with them pulling out of fights, especially in these types of situations. How many times have you seen a fighter lose and then be out for a year and a half because they fought injured because they felt like they had to? We find out later, and it ruins everybody's night because it wasn't a good fight. And this guy is now set back for 2 years in his career and may never be the same again. This guy could have died. Like, let's just give these fighters that punch each other in the face for our entertainment tidbit more grace. I've wasted enough of your time. Thank you all so much for jumping in the house. We've got a full house already. 50 live viewers. My guy D, what's up, buddy? Thank you very much for coming in here. And let's get into it. All right. First fight of the evening. Camuela Kirk taking on Esteban Rivabex. This one has been a tug of war back and forth all week. We've got Kirk coming in at 155.5. Rivabex made 156. I got to tell you, my guy Camuela Kirk made 155 look good. This man filled out at 155 pounds. Huge flex, looked fantastic, very relaxed on the scales today. I think the move up a weight class was a good thing for him. Esteban Rivabex needed the box of shame, and he looked rough. Eyes sunken in, extremely relieved when they called his weight. He did not think he was going to make 156. You can tell he put everything he had into making that weight class. They size up really well. This was a very respectful face-off, and I'm already well into the Camuela Kirk side of things here. You've got Rivabex at minus 155 now, Kirk at plus 135-ish. And we've had, per the Sharp Action Report, my guy Andrew, make sure you watch that after we're done with this. I'll cite it a couple times for maybe an interesting tidbit here and there, but you should go watch that other video. There's sharp action on both sides. Early sharp action on Kirk to bring it down. Late sharp action on Rivabex as this thing got closer to a pick'em to kind of drive it where it's at. Personally, it's one of those spots for me that I think any plus money on Camuela Kirk is good money. So as long as you're getting plus 125, plus 135, I like it. And Breeze Master in the house saying if Kirk has better cardio at the weight, he's not that bad of a fighter. And that's exactly how I feel about it as well. I think he's got a massive ground game advantage. We've seen that Rivabex doesn't really have any takedown defense. So all he needs is one. He's a high-level jiu-jitsu player. So yeah, he's maybe a little outclassed on the feet. cardio and pace wise, but if he gets this fight to the ground, I think he styles on Ribovics and we'll take it from there. So I locked in early. That was my first bet of the night. That's my first bet of the card. 1 unit, Camwell at Kirk. Next up, we've got Jesus Aguilar taking on Shannon Ross. Both guys made 126 pounds. And Aguilar, the best word I can use to describe him, I think, is scrappy. This guy had a giant smile on his face the whole time that he was up there. He looks in great shape, big, solid flex. He's a little small for the division, and you could see that even standing on the scales. Shannon Ross, on the other hand, looked great. Very intense. This man is all business. He's got his back against the wall here, a loss here. He knows what the consequence of that is, and you can tell he's taking this fight very, very seriously. Decent size advantage for Shannon Ross, and that's one of the reasons why I have backed him with my money. He's down to about plus 120 here. Jesus Aguilar still the minus 140 favorite, and I don't get it. I think it's a spot where the public sentiment on Shannon Ross after losing to two guys who are solid and decent, one of which was a massive mistake on his part, the other of which is a future contender. I just think we've swayed too far from the light of God. And I think Shannon Ross should not be an underdog to Jesus Aguilar. At worst, maybe it should be a pick'em, but I would slightly favor Shannon Ross personally. So again, any plus money is good money. I fired on Shannon Ross earlier in the week. I was a little scared to do so. My guy, Andrew Gombas, our co-host for the Monday show, gave me the faith I needed to go ahead and pull that trigger. So I'm in. I like the size advantage, and I think he'll be able to do what he needs to do to get the win here. And honestly, I'm almost looking at maybe like a Ross by decision, which is a little crazy because you'd think this one would end inside the distance. The total's 2.5, juiced to the under. Aguilar's got that Mexican durability. He's got that Spanish chin. You know what I mean? Like, this guy isn't going anywhere. He's hard to finish. He's been tapped out before, and that's not really Shannon Ross's way of doing things. I think he's got one submission win on his entire record. So is he going to be the first guy to KO Jesus Aguilar stiff? I don't think so. And with his back against the wall, I think he's going to take his foot off the gas when it comes to that killer be killed Dana White Contender Series fighting style that he had his last couple fights. I feel like he fought that way against what we've seen kind of on his regional tape before the Dana White Contender Series. And in that Contender Series fight, he just never got out of the danger zone against his opponents. I almost feel like that was this is how you get a contract, bro, type of situation. And he might ease off here, doing what he needs to do to get the win on Saturday. So very tempted to sprinkle on the over and the decision there for that one. Next up, Terrence Mitchell takes on Cameron Simon. Terrence Mitchell 135, matching Simon's 135 on the dot. Mitchell tall, skinny, very much feeling himself. Seemed like he was having a good time there on the scale. He's shredded. He's really cut up. Good physique on the kid. Cameron Simon, very classic, calm smile. Definitely still looks like he's the choir boy. He's going to deal with that for a long time. Poor kid has baby face. Like, even when he's like 29 years old, he's going to look like he's 19, which is not a bad thing, you know, for him. Terrence Mitchell on the face-offs, the ceremonials, he did have like a really weird gait to the way that he walked. Shout out to my guy Joey Banana on Twitter. He was pointing that out to me, asking what I thought of it. And frankly, I don't know him well enough to say if he's dragging his leg because it might be an injury or if that's just how this kid walks. I mean, he's got a bit of an awkward style to his body, so he could just walk that way. I don't want to read too far into that and come on and tell you guys, bust out the tinfoil hat, he's got an injury, we're going to kill him. Like, that's not what's happening here. He might just walk funny. And if that's the case, you know, either way, it doesn't really matter. Cameron Simon inside the distance, he's going to murder this kid. When they face off, Cameron Simon's got a size advantage. He's not the biggest guy for the weight class. Terrence Mitchell is coming up a weight class for this debut. He's already a round one or bust type of fighter, and that's on the Alaska regional scene, which is the worst MMA regional scene on the planet. I think Cameron Simon handles this kid, and he can kind of do it however he wants to. I mean, I don't know that Simon is going to one-punch this man the way that Kai Kara France did, and in fact, I'm a little bit tempted on the Simon by sub, because they're making you lay chalk on Simon inside the distance. But frankly, if they get into an exchange, I kind of feel like Terrence Mitchell's going to shoot. He almost always does, and Simon can grapple really, really well. That Cameron Simon by sub at plus money rather than laying the minus 150 or so, I think that actually makes a decent bit more sense here in this spot, just because you're turning a minus 500 fighter into a plus 375 prop if he just decides he feels like grappling. There's one other spot on the card that we'll talk about, a very similar situation a little bit later on. But if you're looking for a plus money way to play this one, I think that's kind of the way. And some, I know, I'm so sorry. We talked about this last week. I was supposed to be on my new laptop where I've got the plug so I can try to resolve the out of sync audio issue. I'm not sure. It has no problems on Monday, but for some reason on Friday, my internet lags and I'm like out of sync for the show. I think it's because so many more people are home after work and shit like that on Friday that there's an issue. There's a lag there because more people are using it. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. I have a solution. It was supposed to be this week. I'm still on the old laptop this week, so I do apologize. The casual asking for a diehard stimulus check this week, and we're gonna try. We're gonna try. I think I got some good stuff this week here for you. So I like Cameron Simon inside the distance. Frankly, the under 1.5 rounds probably an okay spot. Cameron Simon round one prop, so you don't have to pick KO or sub, stuff like that. I like all that jazz. Next up, Victor Petrino taking on Marcin Prachnio. Both men made 206. Victor Petrino is jacked. This man is well built, looks good, no problems on the scales. Marcin Prachnio, he's got a beard on him. He needs that extra padding around his chin. Very high intelligence fighter here, getting that extra padding to kind of protect himself here. Looks good, solid flex. He's got some arms on him. I'm not going to lie. Marcin Prachnio is a big dude. But when they face off, slight size advantage here for Petrino. Now, this was an intense face-off here. You guys know, if you've been listening to me for any stretch of time, I absolutely hate Marcin Prachnio. I think he's incredibly chinny, and I think he's survived mostly based on high fight IQ and luck in his last couple of fights, and also scraping the bottom of the barrel of this weight class. You guys know I don't like Felipe Lins. Will Knight, God bless his soul, friend, guy that I like, has been cut from the UFC organization after that awful showcasing where he just got pieced apart by Prachnio for 15 minutes at range, didn't even give himself an opportunity to win the fight. Victor Petrino's not going to do that. First off, this guy's bigger than Marcin Prachnio. Second off, this guy's explosive and athletic. So Marcin isn't going to be able to keep this guy at range with one or two little calf kicks. This guy will stomp his way through those kicks and then swing for the fences. And if he does that, I think he clips Marcin Prachnio and puts him away. I think the under 1.5 at minus 140 is an interesting way to play this fight. I think Victor by knockout. I think it's minus 130, minus 135. That's the most likely outcome here in this fight. I don't mind Victor Petrino as a parlay piece in the event that you think he can't find the chin, but frankly, I think we are far past the due date of Marcin Prachnio's chin showing up yet again here and failing him. So I think he gets knocked out on Saturday. Jimmy the Brute Crute taking on Alonzo Menifield. Crute made 205. Alonzo Menifield 205.5. Jimmy looked great. He looked real well built. Solid flex on the scales, looking good, feeling himself today. Alonzo Menifield, kind of the exact opposite. Now, this guy's man mountain, right? He's got more muscle on him than the human body, frankly, should be allowed to have legally. But he was like licking his lips up on the scale, which usually indicates dry mouth and a tough weight cut. Not surprising considering how much muscle he's carrying about. But he had a weird expression on his face. Quite frankly, folks, he looked bored on the scale today. He did not look like he was into it. He did not look like he was involved. And his body was a bit softer than we're used to seeing, which frankly, I can't quite figure out. And when they get to the ceremonial face-offs, he looked extremely like he didn't want to be there. Now, here's the deal, folks. I'm already on Jimmy Crute. This fight was originally scheduled. Jimmy was minus 275, massive favorite. Everybody on Jimmy Crute. He played it wrong. He made a couple mistakes, ended up fighting close in that first round when he could have ran away with it, took a couple of big shots when maybe he shouldn't have. If he simply avoids one or two of those shots, he ran away with that fight with the grappling like we all thought he was going to deeper in the fight. I don't think Menifield is invested in this fight. I think Crute is hungry to get the win we all knew he should have got in the first place. And Menifield is in this spot understanding that he was supposed to lose the first time and barely got out alive, and he's probably going to lose again. I think it happens the way we thought it would the first time. I think it's Crute. And folks, I think it's Crute early. I think he gets Alonzo Menifield down in the first round, and he takes a little bit more of a patient approach to this thing. And once he does, instead of like jumping a desperate guillotine like he did in that first fight, if he just waits for the moment where he gets that side or that back control, he's going to choke this guy out. Jimmy Crute is absolutely going to finish Alonzo Menifield on Saturday. Now, I've already got an investment. I'm in at minus 120 on Jimmy the Brute Crute. And here's the best part. If you guys think I am wrong, our sponsor for the Die Hard MMA podcast, Bet Openly, which lets you go peer-to-peer. You can go head-to-head with other gamblers, cut out the middleman, cut out the house. Everybody gets better odds using that website. 1% juice because there is no house. If you guys like Alonzo Menifield, if one of you thinks Alonzo Menifield wins this fight, I've got my money on Crute. It's on Bet Openly, and you can come steal some of these Clint bucks. Believe it or not, nobody took the fight. And here's the best part. I locked it in at minus 110. I locked it in at minus 110 because I was like, I don't know that this thing's going to move that far. Money's come in on Crute. So I'm not going to short you guys. I canceled my Crute bet and I put it back up on Bet Openly. So now there's an even better number on Minifield on the other side. And Ethan, buddy, saying I'm going to, Minifield's going to kill him. Come take the bet. I got some money sitting right here for you. Come take the bet. Bear with me. I'm going to get you the link here to Bet Openly. It's an awesome site that, frankly, all of you should be using if you're not, especially for like straight up money line spots. Like I mentioned, best part is everybody gets better odds. Both sides of the line get better odds because you cut out the house at 1% juice. You go heads up with somebody. It's a fun little bragging rights thing. So come on, Ethan, click that link, sign up at Bet Openly. Come take my money if you think that Crute's a bad bet here on Saturday. Let's move on. Next fight that we want to talk about here today is going to be Denise Gomez taking on Yasmin Jauregui. Both women made 115.5 pounds. No problem whatsoever for Denise Gomez throwing the one finger up. She looks very confident in herself. I like Denise. I can't blame her for being confident in herself. Jauregui looked fantastic as well. Super solid flex. You could see the bicep vein was going nuts on Jauregui. She's in great shape coming in here to this fight. This was a good face-off. Slight height advantage for Jauregui, however, not nearly as much as I thought it was going to be. This has been a popular underdog pick basically all week. A lot of people coming in on Denise Gomez. Jauregui's down to like a minus 350, minus 360 favorite from being like a 5-1 earlier in the week. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I know people are thinking this is going to be the spot where like the fluky underdog women's MMA fighter comes through for us. But I think Yasmin's got Denise Gomez beat pretty much everywhere, frankly. I mean, I know she got chin checked in her last fight, but she did everything right from that point on. She worked her way back into the fight. She's just going to outpace this girl. And I don't think Denise Gomez has the type of wrestling chops to just keep this girl down. I think this is Yasmin Jauregui's spot to shine. And it's a matter of whether or not Denise Gomez is going to be tough enough to stay in the fight. I kind of like Jauregui by decision. It's plus 110, but like sneaky option here is Jauregui by sub, because I don't think you're knocking out Denise Gomez. Now, I don't want to question Yasmin Jauregui at all, because frankly, I think she's an absolute stud and she's a special fighter and she's going to be fantastic. And she doesn't have any submissions on her record at this point in time, but she did start as a BJJ player. And the way Denise Gomez fights, the way she pushes the grappling, the way she pushes the cage grinding, I just feel like we could end up in some kind of a transition where she snags something. If you're looking for a sprinkle, just a small taste, that sub at 14-1 doesn't seem like a bad option. I think Yasmin is not going to be the parlay buster, personally. I know a lot of people disagree with that. So I don't have the chalky parlay yet, but that's probably what I'm going to do as soon as I sign off the pod here. Is I do think I'm going to add a couple of more plays, mostly parlaying big chalky favorites that I think are going to hold up. This week is all about avoiding that landmine, folks. It really is. And personally, I don't think Denise Gomez is going to be the landmine, but famous last words. We've said that before. Next fight on the docket, Edgar Chairez takes on Tatsuro Taira, which apparently is a 130-pound catch weight. This is something I didn't know until today. Now, usually that's something that happens last minute. Someone's not going to make weight. Somebody's not going to get to the scale. So they call up the other team, and instead of having somebody get fined, they go, hey, you want to stop cutting weight early? Let's go ahead and just weigh in at 130 instead, shall we? That is, I think, what happened here. Taira came in at 130 on the dot. Edgar Chairez 129. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what to make of Edgar Chairez. He gave like a super weird flex. He did like the mask thing and then like threw up some signs. I don't know. He was having a weird flex on the scale today. I don't know what to make of this guy. Tatsuro Taira, skinny kid still, no problem, but obviously we know how fantastic of a grappler he is. This was an intense face-off. I love Taira's energy. I love how he brings it to everybody every single time. And Chairez was getting in his face, not backing off. This was fun. Solid size up here between these two guys. They match up really well. This is one of the ones, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little worried about. Tatsuro Taira is an 11-1 favorite, and the bookies need one of these guys to come through as a big dog here. I can't bring myself to bet against Tatsuro Taira. I just can't. I don't think I can. But frankly, what I saw from Edgar Chairez in the fight against Clayton Carpenter has me a little bit worried, because his takedown defense was so fucking good. It was so good. As soon as his butt hit the ground, he popped right back up immediately. Now, Taira is more of a jiu-jitsu guy than he is a wrestler. So if he hits the ground, he'll probably transition to the back. He'll probably lock in a body triangle. He could climb this guy like a tree. And that's why I'm staying away from it, right? Because I think Clayton Carpenter is a better wrestler than Tyra is. Tyra's the better grappler, I think, than Carpenter is. So if we're doing some MMA math, I think that Tyra's going to have a hard time getting this fight to the ground. And if he has a hard time getting this fight to the ground, I think Tyra might be in trouble on the feet. Edgar Chairez is a durable, tough, offensive striker who likes to plod his way forward and really puts a lot of heat on his punches. I think this fight is going to be competitive. Now, at the end of the day, I can't sit here and tell you that I'm going to pick Edgar Chairez to go ahead and get the win, but he has impressed me in his last couple of fights. It looks like he's improving in his last couple of fights. And the Clayton Carpenter fight was a very greasy, very close decision, and he almost finished Clayton Carpenter in the first round. So I have Tatsuro Taira, who has yet to be tested in the striking realm. Makes me a little nervous laying anywhere near this number. I'm not parlaying 11-1. I'll pick the kid to win, and I do think it's probably by sub, but the bookies don't want your money on this one. Submission is minus 200, minus 250. Like, they all know that's his path to victory at this point. And considering someone like Jesus Aguilar, who we talked about earlier on the card, tapped this guy Chairez with a guillotine, obviously someone like Tatsuro Taira will be capable of doing that. One thing that I think could potentially happen is Tatsuro Taira could make a mistake in a transition. He's got a real nasty armbar. He's got a real nasty triangle choke. And Chairez has been caught by a triangle choke before. In fact, the first time he lost was a submission via triangle choke. So I still think even if Tatsuro Taira is losing this fight, even if that plus 650 looks like it's money, Taira could bail himself out. So this is where I'm having such a hard time because honestly, I'm rocking the always trust your balls t-shirt, by the way. So if I'm saying minus 1100 is live, I should probably just take a half unit stab here on the plus 650. But I'm scared, man. I'm chicken. I don't know. Edgar Chairez by knockout at 20-1 would probably be a better sprinkle than the Edgar Chairez money line, if I'm being honest. But we'll see what happens. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if I've got the balls to play that one. I'm wearing the shirt. I should just sack up and do it, but I don't know if I'm quite that crazy. Next up, Robbie Lawler takes on Niko Price. Lawler 170.5, Price 171. This is classic board Robbie Lawler on the scale. I knock some people for that. I absolutely talk shit about people that look like they're, I did it against Alonzo Menifield just a minute ago. But that's always Robbie. Every single time. Interviews, weigh-ins, face-offs, nothing. Zero emotion. He doesn't turn on until he's in the cage. So we know we can't look at that. But he did not look as tight as his last couple weight cuts. I'll be honest with you. We talked about this. It's retirement in Robbie Lawler. We know he's hanging it up at the end of this fight. We know this is his last UFC opportunity. And because of that, if he's coming in looking a little soft on the scales, surprise, surprise, it's his retirement fight. He's probably not the same guy he was. Niko Price, on the other hand, looked jacked. He definitely had some Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands, energy up on the scales today. He pounds his chest, sticks his arms up, grabs his necklace. He's doing all the things on the scale today. Niko Price is going to have a size advantage here on this spot. Both guys were very respectful, smiling to each other here at the face-offs. Niko Price is a guy that worries me. This could be the parlay buster, but at the same time, I'm going nowhere near retiring Robbie Lawler, so it's kind of a stay away for me. I'm picking Niko Price to win, but I don't know that I can trust him. I mean, he hits like a truck. He also has some grappling upside. Robbie maybe just can't keep the pace or the volume or take the punches anymore. It all says Niko. It all says Niko, but I just have this really stupid, weird thing in my brain that tells me that this fight's going to be closer than it should be. I hope Niko, I don't want to see Robbie Lawler go out again, man. I really don't. So I can't say I hope Niko just one punches him and puts him out. That should be the way that this fight ends. You're getting even money on Niko Price by knockout. That's what the bookies think's going to happen. But at the same time, I just can't trust the guy as far as I can throw him. And he's a human being who fights at 180 pounds. So I can't throw him very far. I'll be honest with you. So I'm picking Niko Price for the win. I will absolutely fade Robbie Lawler. When I do the Hail Mary, pick all your sides type of parlay, Niko Price is going to go in that one. But I don't think I'm going to put him in any significant investment. This might be a live bet spot. Real quick here for Dixon saying, fun fact, Niko Price has never been a favorite in the UFC. He's never lost as a favorite in the UFC. Are we going against the trend? We are absolutely not going against the trend, but the fight goes to decision is interesting, Dixon, because he is working his wrestling. He is working his grappling. And we saw in the Donald Cerrone fight, these guys legends, guys he's looked up to, I don't know if he takes it easy on them. Like he might legitimately just like take it easy on these guys he's looked up to. I love Niko Price. I love the guy. He follows me on Twitter, but he's not the brightest crayon in the box. And sometimes I do think that his emotions can get involved in these types of situations. If he was go out and kill this man, you know how Donald Cerrone would lose anytime he was friendly with somebody? You guys remember that before he fell off the cliff? When Donald Cerrone was like buddy with a fighter before they stepped in the cage, he lost those fights because that killer instinct wasn't there. That mentality, that switch, you needed Cowboy in the cage, and he wasn't there if somebody was nice to him before the fight. I kind of feel like that's the same thing with Niko Price, is when he's got somebody he likes, when he's got somebody he looks up to. Some of these younger fighters, they eventually turn that corner where they're ready to kill anybody that gets in their way for the sake of their goals. Niko has kind of turned into a guy where he's more than willing to have a fun fight. You know what I mean? And if he's in there with somebody like Cowboy or somebody like Robbie, that fight that probably should go under might go over instead. So that's definitely worth a sprinkle on the tinfoil hat here. Niko Price by decision is maybe a look. Again, I don't want to trust Niko as far as I can throw him. I am not putting large portions of money on that. I do think Niko Price wins the fight. Whether it's by hook, whether it's by crook, it might fight a lot closer than we expect it to. But Niko Price going the distance and going over in his last couple fights, there's a chance that this thing goes all the way and we could get Price by decision. And I think you can get plus 350, plus 400 on that. So maybe not a bad look. Good shout out there, Dixon. Good call on the favorites line there. I didn't realize that he had never lost as a favorite in the UFC. That's a great thing for people to know. Next up, Bo Nickal takes on Val Woodburn. We've got 186 for Bo, 185.5 for Val. No problem. Classic Bo on the scales today. He's done this his entire life. Val Woodburn gave a huge flex. This dude is a little tank. You love to see it. He's having fun up there. He knows he's being brought in here in this spot for a showcase opportunity to lose. He knows he's supposed to end up on a highlight reel. And it seems like he's just eating that up. It seems like this guy is absolutely loving the fact that he can come in here and spoil the show. Now, almost nobody ever actually does come in and spoil the show, but I like his attitude. Val has a massive head. You guys will hear me talk about it every single time Volkanovski fights. His head is like 1.5 times the size of his opponent's head, just massive noggin on him. This guy reminds me a whole lot of that. He is a short king, and he was not backing down from this face-off. There's a huge height advantage for Bo here in this spot, but he doesn't know that he's the underdog. Val Woodburn is probably going to get his ass whooped in this spot. Bo is a record-breaking 30-1 favorite here in the UFC. The under 1.5 is chalked over to minus 400 for the under 1.5. Bookies don't want your money on this fight. They know the outcome. Everybody's waiting for it. And quite frankly, folks, the one thing that I think I would do here in this spot is turn the rationale on its head. We mentioned this a little earlier in the fight. Why can't Bo win by knockout? Why not? This guy usually operates a weight class below. Now, yes, he's all muscly and he's very strong, but let me tell you guys, choking out a fire hydrant is a very difficult thing to do. I've wrestled with some guys that have no neck. They're very hard to submit. They're very hard to hit arm bars on. You know why? Because they can curl your entire body weight, because that's just the way they're fucking built. And that's kind of how this guy is. But I do think that Bo is going to be able to get takedowns, quite obviously. And if he gets those takedowns and he rides this guy's back, or he takes his back and hips him down, flattens him out, I think there's an opportunity we get a ground and pound out of Bo Nickal. I don't think this guy's going to have an answer for Bo's wrestling, because this guy is quite literally Olympic level when it comes to his wrestling chops. And as much as we think Val is maybe a decent wrestler for MMA, we've never seen it. It's on the regional scene. He's not even proven to be UFC level at this point. Bo's going to take him down. And if Bo takes him down and Bo wants a sub, he probably can find him. But if he goes, you know what, it's hard for me to get my arm under that neck, why don't I just elbow this guy? Why isn't the ref pulling him off? We could get a TKO. You could turn a 30-1 favorite into a plus 250 dog. I'm trying to find the line. I'm looking for it right now. I think Bo by knockout. Let me see, because I don't have to quote any specific book to you guys. Now I can quote whatever the fuck book I want. Bo Nickal on DraftKings by knockout is plus 225. Folks, I don't care if Bo comes out and subs this guy in the first 30 seconds. Turning a 30-1 favorite into a plus 225 dog, you couldn't ask for much more. Like, that's a great number, because if Bo wants a knockout, Bo gets a knockout. If Bo wants a sub, Bo will take a sub. But the number difference, minus 250 for the sub, fuck that. Never. So if anything, I'll be sprinkling Bo Nickal by knockout. I would honestly be looking at like round 1 KO and see if we could pump that number up even further. That's the only way I can imagine possibly playing this fight. If you want to trust Val whatsoever to just survive in this fight, the over 1.5 is like plus 300, plus 320. I don't think he can. I don't think he will. But if you guys know something about Val that maybe I don't, and maybe his takedown defense is really fantastic and spectacular, and that's something that you want to roll with, that's a way that you can easily flip the narrative and find a lot of value on a number, because 1.5 rounds at this weight class isn't necessarily the hardest thing in the world to come by. So if Bo can't quite control this guy, or can't get the ground and pound off, or can't find his neck, he will win dominantly, but it could squeeze over that 1.5. So just some thoughts for you guys. I'm not betting that one myself. I do think it's Bo probably round 1. The only thing that's going to get my money, if anything, would be that KO prop. Next up, Dan Hooker, Jalin Turner, the one you guys have all probably been looking for here. Dan Hooker comes in at 155.5. Turner missed weight, baby, 158. Dan Hooker, classic. He looked a little bit sucked out. He's got a weird body. You guys noticed that? Dan Hooker has got like, he looks almost like somebody from Final Fantasy VII, where it's all geometric shapes, right? Because like his shoulders are bulky, and then he gets real slim here, and then he's actually got some decent muscle on his biceps, and then he gets real skinny again. Like, what? Look at him flex. He's got the weirdest body I've ever seen. Great shape, looking good. Jalin Turner looked very annoyed on the scales today. Obviously, guy tries to be a professional, but he missed weight, coming in at 158 pounds today. So he gives up 20% of his purse, and this is dump truck time. I talked about this on Monday. You know, my guy Locker Room said that he talked with Jalin Turner about this fight leading up. He's been training with Hamzat. He's been adding muscle. He's been working on stuff like that. And quite frankly, if this man added muscle, I called it on Monday. I was like, if he put muscle on, he's not making weight, because it already took everything he had to get down to 155. He's destined to fight at 170 pounds. He is too big for this weight class. But if he put muscle on, and especially if the doctors told him to cut that weight cut short, especially if he moves and looks okay on the scales today, but he's bigger, he's stronger, he's going to have such an advantage in this fight. Like, Dan Hooker can't catch a break, but Jalin Turner is going to have massive piles of muscle on him. He's going to rehydrate well, and then he's going to have more energy in this fight. I absolutely think it's Jalin Turner by knockout. I like Jalin Turner as a parlay piece. I like the KO prop is plus 165, plus 175, somewhere in that ballpark at this point. And honestly, I think it happens early. I do have some good news here for you folks. If you like hearing the Sharp Action Report stuff, Andrew DM'd me after the show was over, and they apparently got slammed on the under 1.5 here for this spot after Turner made weight. Respected action, big bets coming in on the under 1.5. If that matters to you guys, there's the info. It's not going to be on the other show because it wasn't in yet at the time. I like Jalin Turner. I've liked Jalin Turner all week. I've liked Jalin Turner my whole life. I've been betting on this man time and time again and getting wonderful, wonderful spots with great plus money, great value. And he just continues to impress, continues to cash. I don't like the line. I wish I was getting a better number on him. And one thing I am a little bit gonna tell you guys, Jalin Turner's money line is like minus 275, minus 300 in some spots. Fight doesn't go the distance is minus 300. There's something to be said for saying we believe Jalin Turner is going to be the one who finishes. However, you could play the doesn't go the distance as opposed to picking a side. And then if Hooker banks him, or if he gasses out because of all that extra muscle or a bad weight cut, that might be the move. I'll be honest with you guys. So on Monday, I said I'm picking Turner and I'm going to bet Turner. And if he misses weight, we back up the dump truck. And I still am sticking by that. However, we're betting numbers. And I've done this a couple times recently where I've picked a fighter and I should have picked a total. Like last week's a perfect example. In the main event, I talked about the under and I ended up putting my money on Abus and I didn't bet the under to hedge myself. That would have been a perfect spot to play the total rather than picking a side. This might be that spot too, especially if we're talking about parlaying, because I believe that Jalin Turner will finish Dan Hooker in the first round via knockout. That's my read. That's the pick. However, Dan Hooker does have offensive skills. He does have great cardio. He's got a good gas tank. He hits pretty hard. He might be a little cleaner at range. And we've seen some of the defensive issues that Turner has. Even with the extra size, even with the extra muscle, there's a chance Dan Hooker can clip and hurt Jalin Turner. It's possible. Given that the numbers for money line and total are the exact same, maybe we bet the total instead. Turner's still the pick, but the bet might be the under, just to let you know. Dricus du Plessis takes on Robert the Reaper Whittaker up next. Dricus, 186 pounds. Rob Whittaker, 185.5. Dricus is a big dude. I don't know how this guy made 170. I really don't. Huge flex, very confident in himself, feeling himself on the scales today. Rob Whittaker, no issues. This is your maximum professional Rob. He always does everything he's supposed to, everything he needs to. Good, solid flex. He's huge. Another guy that moved up from 170, believe it or not. It was ages ago, but he really did. This was a very intense face-off. Dricus got in super close. Little size advantage for Dricus here in this spot. He's a little bit bigger than Rob Whittaker. Everett hitting me with the Clintus du Plessis. Love the profile pick there, Everett. Love it, love it. Man, this is a spot where all I got to do is this, folks. All I got to say is this. I've said it all week. If you look at this skill for skill, if you straight up watch the tape, if you look at the resumes, the only thing you can do is say that Robert Whittaker is the better fighter. The only thing you can do is say that Robert Whittaker is the cleaner striker. The only thing you can do is say that everything points to Rob being the favorite here in this spot. And even Dricus knows that. Like, he was talking about it this week, that he understands that he's the underdog in this spot. He knows that he's supposed to be the dog in this spot, but this is his opportunity to prove that he belongs at the top of the division. This is his opportunity to prove that he needs to be stepping up and he needs to be respected as an underdog here in this spot. And as we're talking about this line is coming down. I wanted that plus 300 on Dricus. He's plus 270, plus 260 now. I'm going to have to look around and see if I can still salvage a plus 300. But I've been saying it all week. My brain tells me it's Rob, but the hairs on the back of my neck are telling me that Dricus is going to find a way to win this fight. I believe Dricus is going to changing the guard, as we've talked about a lot this year. It's finally time for the sun to set on Robert the Reaper Whittaker, and I think this is the man to do it. I think Dricus du Plessis is going to be the guy that puts the nail in the coffin. I don't know how he does it. In fact, if anything, I would take like a little degenerate sprinkle on the sub prop because frankly, he's got 10 wins by sub. I know Rob is a hard guy to take down, but he's not so hard to take down if you hurt him. He's been clipped a lot. He's been hurt a lot. And what we see from Dricus is time and time and time again, du Plessis grabs the neck. He's so big. He's so strong. He's got a tight squeeze on him, and he knows how to attack those chokes. He's got big-time killer instinct. I like Dricus. I'm pulling out the tinfoil cap. Brain says Whittaker. Hairs on the back of my neck. Say Dricus. We're going to bet Dricus tomorrow, folks. And unfortunately, I did miss that 3-1. It looks like the entire market has been hit and it's coming down, which is very upsetting to me. I should have locked it in this afternoon. But I might even sprinkle a sub prop here on Dricus du Plessis. I got to pick one of these spots for my action, the prop squad article. I got to write that tonight. So I've got a couple of DGen spots that we might take a look at here for this one. I'm not sure if this is going to be the one or not, but I think Dricus can get it done on Saturday. Co-main event, folks. Hey, we got 225 live viewers. First off, thank you all so much for being here. Make sure you go on back through here. Check out the link. Click on my link here. Check out Bet Openly. It's going to be a great resource for you guys. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you haven't already. And I will go ahead and just scold you guys a little bit. My Sharp Action report had like 200 views right as soon as we ended it, and it only had like 20 likes. Come on. Come on, baby. Is this not entertainment? I'm breaking out a tinfoil hat for you and everything. I'm giving you sharp betting info. I'm also deginning my face off. Hit the like button for me. Let's go. Co-main event. We've got a title on the line. My boy, Brandon Moreno, maybe my favorite. No, not maybe. My favorite active fighter on the UFC roster and one of the biggest money trains I could have ever asked for. Came in at 125 on the dot, championship weight. Alexandre Pantoja, the man who is 2-0 over Brandon Moreno, came in at 125 on the dot. Moreno, no problems. Classic Moreno. Let me do the face. That's what Brandon Moreno does every single time. It's like cocked off to the side and everything. Alexandre Pantoja, he came in and honestly looked a bit worn. You know, he's getting up there. He's 33 years old. He's getting towards the end of that athletic prime. You could see a little wear and tear on his face, his cheeks popping out, but he's stone cold. Like, this guy wants that belt. This guy wants that belt, and it's his opportunity over a man he knows he can beat. This was a super respectful face-off, but Pantoja is as intense as they come. Like, you can tell he absolutely respects Brandon Moreno, but as soon as they get any distance from each other, he's staring lasers at this man. They size up really well. I hate this number. I hate this number. So here's the thing. This is where I'm going to go back on everything I've ever told you guys. Brandon Moreno should not be a 2-1 favorite in this spot. He shouldn't be. He's fighting a man who's fought just as high a caliber of competition as he has, who has 2 wins over him, 1 dominant and 1 by finish. Like, this man should never be a dog to Brandon Moreno. This should be a pick'em. We are getting taxed because Brandon Moreno has a belt. While that's fair, I cannot endorse a minus 190 play on Brandon Moreno. If this fight were a pick'em, I would be lining up heavily on Brandon Moreno because I do think he's taking this fight seriously. I think he's made major improvements. He's the younger of the 2 fighters, and he's looked spectacular in his last couple fights when, even though Pantoja found ways to win, I can chip little holes in some of the performances we've seen in his last couple fights. I think Brandon Moreno wins this fight, and in fact, I think he'll do it emphatically. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see a late finish from Brandon Moreno. I may be sprinkling the late KO props from my guy Brandon Moreno because Alexandre Pantoja has shown a propensity to get tired throughout the fight. He's started to wear down. He's started to slow down. And even in like the Brandon Royval fight, I thought Royval was starting to melt him. I really thought Royval was turning the tides and he was going to wear down Pantoja. And then Pantoja just made the perfect move and snagged a neck. Now, Royval is the king of scrambles, but he puts himself in those bad situations. Moreno is not quite as bad defensively. He will not give up those spots. He's very good at scrambling, but he's also not going to allow himself to be in that bad of a position in the first place. So if Pantoja can't get that Hail Mary sub, frankly, if he doesn't finish Moreno early, I think he's going to have trouble the later this fight goes. I wouldn't be shocked if you get a better money line number on Brandon Moreno, maybe after the second round or something like that, if this fight is very close. And I do think it will go a little bit longer, but the deeper this fight goes, the more I favor Brandon Moreno. I know he can go a hard fought 25 minutes. His striking is so clean these days. And even though Pantoja hits hard, if Moreno can get through what Figueiredo was throwing at him, I don't think he's going to have a problem absorbing Pantoja's shots. And if he just avoids the grappling, he'll be okay here. I think we get a late knockout from Brandon Moreno or a decision victory, but he needs this win to cement his legacy, and I think he's going to get it. On top of that, Pantoja is the popular underdog of the week. So, again, you have to bet dog or pass. You have to. This money line shouldn't be any more than minus 110. And that's why people are taking Pantoja. So from a betting standpoint, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense why people are betting Pantoja, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I still think Brandon Moreno is going to win this fight. There's no value on the number minus 190 whatsoever, but I think he wins. If I'm going to have anything, it's going to be Brandon Moreno, and I think Moreno will finish him late in this fight. Main event time, Alexander Volkanovski taking on Yair Rodríguez. Volkanovski 144.5. Yair Rodríguez 145. Volk, surprisingly, no issues whatsoever getting down to 145 again after moving up to 155. Sometimes we see that when these fighters move up a weight class, they have a real hard time coming back down. And he didn't have an issue at all. In fact, he came in a half-pound light, which is very impressive. Now, Rodríguez, solid flex. He is shredded, man. This guy's feeling himself up there. He's the interim title holder. I love that belt. That super cool Mexico-colored belt is maybe the coolest thing we've ever seen. Fuck the baddest motherfucker belt. Get that thing out of here. I want the Mexico champion belt. I want that thing to be etched into the history of the UFC. It needs to be made an actual thing. You know, in fact, why don't we custom color UFC champions belts, period? Because I'll bet you a Brazil one would look sick as fuck. Can you imagine if Colby wins and they get an American red, white, and blue UFC belt? Like, this is the coolest new idea. I know it was fan made, but the UFC needs to jump on this in a hurry. This is going to be such a good fight. Obviously, big size advantage for Yair Rodríguez. Frankly, I didn't realize how big he was. Like, when they got in there, Volk really looks like he's a weight class smaller in this spot. Money's been coming in on Yair Rodríguez all week. This line has come down a little bit. Volkanovski is a minus 180 favorite, plus 190 on Yair Rodríguez, the dog here. And what we heard from my guy Andrew at Superbook is that the line was juiced to the over 4.5. And so much money has come in on the under in this fight that it's flipped from being minus 130 over 4.5 to minus 130 under 4.5. Going through that zero and flipping from dog to favorite, that's a hard thing to do. And the fact that it's gone from 130 to 130, not just like to 110 or 105, something like that. It's gone from 130 to 130. That's a big move. That's a big respectable move for the bookie to make that kind of a move. So I originally leaned Volkanovski by decision. That's kind of what he does. But I'm starting to believe in that under. The way Yair Rodríguez fights, I've seen him put on his back and be a helpless little baby by a guy like Frankie Edgar. And I think Volkanovski can do that to him. Now, he's gotten much, much better since those days. But if there's a path to a finish for Volkanovski, that's definitely it. And then Stan, we've seen Volk hurt in every single fight in his past 2 years worth of MMA fights. Yair Rodríguez is not the guy you want to be hurt by on the feet. Like, this guy's kicks are stellar. So I kind of think taking a violence option on this one and not picking a side may be the way to go. I do think Volkanovski is going to make this fight close. I do think he's going to make it competitive. And I can say the same for Yair Rodríguez. Like, I think these guys are going to go to war here in this spot. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Yair pulls off a Kamaru Usman round 5 head kick KO type of spot here. I don't want to see it. I want Volkanovski to be the champ, Mr. Punchable Face Yair Rodríguez. I don't want him to be my champion. So I'm rooting hard here for Volk. I don't have any investment, but guys, what I think is something you can do is either anchor your parlays. If you're going to do parlays on Volkanovski, you've got a plus 300 underdog. That's a very easy hedge out to lock up some money if you want to go that way. Or you can make yourself a middle. If you do fight doesn't go the distance, you're going to be paying minus 150 or something like that to anchor your parlays. But then you could do like an over 2.5. It'd be a little chalky on both sides, but you literally get a middle. I've talked about this before. When you're sports betting in basketball, in football, you can do middle spreads, right? Like if you get +1, like +7.5 early in the week, and then it drops, you can lay -3.5, and you've got a 4-point middle where you can cash both bets. That's so hard to do in MMA because it's a money line sport, because you can only pick one fighter to win. There's no way to middle it. But with these totals, with these 5-round main events, you absolutely can. So if you want to buy a little bit extra, play fight doesn't go the distance, and anchor all your shit on that, then if you are at that final leg, you can absolutely hedge out and middle yourself with an alternate total of an over 2.5 or an over 3.5 and try and find that sweet spot where there's like a late finish in the main event that cashes both sides of that ticket for you. So not only do you get the hedge and lock up free money, but you double up on it as well. That's the idea, folks. I'm going to run back through this. For those of you, we've got over 230 live viewers in the show, so thank you all for being here. Hit the like button for me. Let me just run real fast, quick, punchy through the card for you guys. I bet Cam Willikirk. I bet Shannon Ross. I bet Jimmy Crute. I'm going to parlay Victor Petrino. I'm probably going to parlay Cameron Simon. I do think that fight under makes a lot of sense. I like Yasmin Haregi. I might end up parlaying her. I think Tatsuro Taira wins, but this line is so wide. And for some reason, I got the heebie-jeebies on Edgar Shirez. 20-1 on Edgar to land a KO. Under 1.5 on that fight. I like the under, I think, on that fight. Picking Nico Price. Can't trust the man, so not sure what exactly I'm doing there. Tinfoil Hat says Price by decision at 4-1. Bo Nickal by knockout. Easy way to turn a big favorite into a dog. Jalin Turner, however, his money line matches the fight doesn't go the distance. Parlaying fight doesn't go the distance is probably the way to go rather than picking a side just in case, because I think they're essentially the same thing. And then you also get some Dan Hooker win equity mixed in there with it. Dricus du Plessis, that's the big dog. We're going to take a shot. Maybe Dricus by sub. That's the sprinkle. That's the sprinkle, baby. Brandon Moreno, late TKO props probably from Brandon Moreno, 3-4-5, something like that. Got to go with Volk. Got to go with Volkanovski, but probably an under if I'm going to bet anything on Volkanovski. So again, at this point, I only have 3 bets, and I'm probably going to do some of these round robin-y chalky parlay pieces for a couple more bets for action by tomorrow. Give me a follow at Die MMA Pod. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. So follow me wherever you want to, and then I will be posting my official action as soon as I get the chance. Make sure you check out Bet Openly, and if you think I am wrong when it comes to our guy Jimmy Crute and you want the other side, take my action, cut out the middleman, come get a better number, and take Alonzo Minifield. Go heads up with me, get some of these Clint bucks, and have those bragging rights over me for next week. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into the show. Good luck on all your degenerate action next week. Let's kick some serious ass this weekend. I can't wait. This is such a banger of a card. I love you guys. Get out there, and we'll see you tomorrow. Let's roll.